Welcome, 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 geeks and nerds, girls and boys, to a brand new episode of Geek to Me Radio. Tonight, we've got two great actors on deck. Mike Manning joins us talking about his new movie, The Way Out. Later on tonight, we'll be joined by Julian Bailey talking about working opposite Alfred Molina in the Amazon series Three Pines. All that and more. Stand by.
We're talking TV, comics and movies, and video games. And if you don't know Star Trek from Star Wars, we'll try to explain. There are 12 doctors for Hogwarts houses, one ring rules them all. To be the greatest Pokemon master, you must catch them all. You must catch them all. Try to catch them all. Gotta catch them all. Gotta catch them all.
And if you're driving around the greater St. Louis area tonight, listening to us on the Big 550 KTRS, hello to all of you. Thank you for spending part of your Sunday evening with us. If you're hearing us on the stream right now, we got Joey V's in the studio with me, so we got video up. So if you're watching us on YouTube, Facebook, or YouTube or Facebook, I think, then hello to you. I get confused. It's late. I've been up since 4 in the morning. And of course, if you're hearing us after the fact in the podcast form, on whatever platform you get your podcasts, we appreciate you finding us there and subscribing us and listening. It's going to be a great show. Two great actors. First up, we've got Emmy winner Mike Manning. He's going to be talking about a brand new film, The Way Out. We'll talk about some other stuff in his career, too. Mike, thanks very much for the time today.
Yeah, James, thanks for having me.
Of course. Talking about the movie, so I noticed one of the things when I was going over your IMDb resume, you've got such an eclectic. I mean, you've got TV, you've got movies, you've got drama, you've got period pieces like D-Day, Battle of Omaha, you've got horror like Case 13, drama, obviously. If I had to say, I would say you don't have a wheelhouse. Is there a genre of acting you prefer?
Well, I mean, I think playing in the sandbox with different people and different projects is what makes acting fun and what keeps it interesting. And so, you know, I would never want to be pigeonholed into just one category or just one character. And I think at the beginning, I mean, I've been in LA now for over a decade, and earlier on in my career, I would just take whatever I could get because I wanted to meet people. I wanted to be on set. I wanted to work. You know, I was pursuing the life of an actor and trying to make connections and sort of earn my place at the table. And then more recently, the last, I would say, 4 or 5 years, I've been much more deliberate in the types of roles and trying to take roles that are challenging and scary and are different than what I've played before.
We mentioned as we introed you, you're an Emmy winner. When you've got an Emmy or a huge award under your belt, does that change your outlook in the like how you approach the industry in general? Do you feel like you've got almost something more to prove? Like now you've got a big award, you kind of want to raise the bar. How does that affect you personally and your craft?
Well, so much of acting, and I think a creative lifestyle in general, is you work really hard and you hope that you're doing the right thing. You hope that the world is sort of buying what you're selling. And winning an Emmy was nice because it sort of reaffirmed that I was doing the right thing. It's the industry's way of saying, hey, we like what you're doing. You've done well. You've earned something, and you should be proud of it. And so I don't think it's changed necessarily the way that I approach the industry, but I think that it has a little bit changed the way that the industry has approached me. And I am getting bigger meetings. I am getting offered bigger jobs. People are taking me more seriously when I walk into a room and say, this is what I want to do. This is what the types of roles I want to play. And that's nice because that wasn't always necessarily the case.
And you're on Days of Our Lives. You're, I think, maybe my fifth person from Days of Our Lives on. I grew up, my grandma moved in with us early on when my grandfather died. She had to see her story. So I kind of grew up watching Days of Our Lives, and it's been so fascinating to see how the genre of soap operas has changed as well. Coming into this, this particular sandbox, is the way you put it, for Days of Our Lives with all these established characters. I know a lot of actors, both who started out in soap operas and who have gone into soaps and come back out, have said it's some of the hardest work you'll ever do. How did you find working on Days of Our Lives?
Yeah, exactly what you just said. I think working on a soap opera really gave me a respect for those actors. And, you know, you have Demi Moore, you have so many actors that I think that started on soaps that was their training ground.
Yeah.
And I absolutely can relate to that. Days of Our Lives was the first thing that I did after the pandemic. And I guess not after the pandemic, we're still sort of in it. But it was right when the entertainment industry had closed down. And I found out that I booked the job March 10th of 2020.
Oh.
And I signed my contract and everything else. March 13th of 2020 was when everything shut down.
Yeah.
And so I basically spent the first 6-7 months of the pandemic not knowing if I had a job, not knowing what was going to happen with the industry in general. And then they called me in August, and they're basically like, hey, Mike, we're going to start shooting again September 1st, and we want you essentially, we're going to honor the contract, and you're this character, and you start September 1st, our first day back. So it was crazy. It was it was a very interesting experience because I go to set and I'm working with these people that have worked together for years. Some of these actors have been on the show for decades, and they're all such a tight-knit community, but everybody is sort of discovering and figuring out this weird pandemic, wearing masks, not being able to, having a social distance, not being able to talk to each other in person. We had to rehearse over FaceTime or Google Chats or whatever on our phones, and it was bizarre. It was like I was living in an episode of Twilight Zone. And then I go back there. It really was. And I go back there, and the first day they took it easy on me. I only had 5 pages. My second day, I had 7 pages. My third week on the show, there would be some days where I would have 40 pages a day.
Wow.
And it was insane to me. And I remember the first time they ever gave me 40 pages, because they shoot an episode a day. They shoot 75 pages a day, an episode every single day. And sometimes you'll shoot little bits of 2 different or 3 different episodes as your character. And so you just have to learn the scenes and do your best. And I remember driving to work on the first time that I had 40 pages in one day, and I was like, I'm going to get fired today. I was like, there's no way that my brain is going to hold all of these words. I'm going to get fired. So it's been a good run. It's been fun. And some ways, somehow, I remembered everything, and I had some really nice moments. And it was actually the first day that I worked with Tamara Braun, who played my mother on the show, and she's fantastic. And she, long story short, my storyline in the show is that I'm her other son. I'm kind of the bad son that nobody ever knew about. I show up in town. I cause a bunch of drama. And the first day that we work together, I'm essentially yelling at her and confronting her about never loving me. And it's really emotional, and we cry and we yell and we whatever. And so not only did I have so much dialogue, but I really had to hit some of these beats because it really defined the rest of our story arc and the rest of our relationship on the show.
Sure.
And she was so lovely. The first day I worked with her, she could tell that I was like reading my script and just trying to stay on top of everything. And she just comes over and she says, I can't wait to work with you. I've been really looking forward to meeting you after I read our scripts. And she goes and she gives me a hug, and she knew exactly what she was doing. And she sort of held me in this hug for a couple seconds longer than you would with somebody that you're just meeting. And I felt like in that moment, she was my mother in the scene, comforting me. And then, and the storyline, she's very cold, and my character wants that love and wants that warmth and wants that connection. And so she's hugging me, and then they're like, okay, action. And she turns away, and then she just turns it on, and she's cold.
Wow.
Immediately cold. And I'm still living in that wanting to hug her and wanting that closeness.
That's brilliant.
And it was great. And it really colored the entire scene. And it's still one of my favorite scenes. I was in the show, I think for a total of 65 episodes over the last 2 years. And those scenes are still among my favorite that I worked on.
And again, if you're just now tuning in, we're talking with Mike Manning. New movie out called The Way Out. I think it is available, if I'm not mistaken, starting February 10th on digital on demand. You play Shane Collins in this. Again, it's a very good part. I mean, this movie has a lot of layers to it. It's something that I think a lot of people are going to enjoy. Talk a little bit about when you're doing a film like this. You mentioned kind of like how Eva helped you. Eva, the character, sorry. Tamara helped you in that scene. When you're working on something like this, how did you kind of find the character of Shane? Did you kind of do some read-throughs with the other people who great cast, by the way, too, but how did you end up kind of getting into the role of Shane Collins?
Yeah, so I found out about the project through a friend of mine, Nick Thurr, and he and I had worked on a film together called Slapface. It's a horror film that we shot in upstate New York at the end of 2019, and he and I had produced that together. We worked really closely. He's one of my good friends. He found out about this script and talked to the director, and in the beginning, I sort of gave my thoughts on the script, and I was like, hey, guys, maybe try this, and I was just sort of involved as a friend. And then a couple months later, they came back to me, and they had made the changes in the script, and the director calls me, and he's like, hey, Mike, I've been thinking a lot about it, and I want you to play Shane. And I immediately, the idea scared me because, as you know, the film, it's a very intense film, it's a very intense character, and it's a more intense character than I've ever played before, and so it scared me. And I said, "Hey, I'm going to need 24 hours to think about it." He said, "No problem. Call me tomorrow." So I thought about it, and I called him, and I said, "Yeah, let's do it." And immediately I started because I had been boxing when I was younger, but it had been a while, and the physicality and the boxing and the fighting aspect is such an important part of this character. So immediately I started boxing lessons. I changed my diet. I started working out with heavier weights. I gained overall, before filming, I gained 13 pounds for the role.
Wow.
In the 3 months leading up to filming, and then I was doing boxing classes, and then above and beyond that, I just had to get into the psychology of the pain and the anger and the rage that the character sort of defines his character throughout the film, and the story is loosely based on some of the things that happen in the life of Barry J, our director. And he, as a kid, some bad things happened to him. And so he and I had really candid conversations, and he was really open and honest and there for me when we were trying to create the backstory and create some of these things. And Barry in himself is a success story. I think that he's an example of somebody that, bad things sort of happened as a kid, but he didn't let that trauma define him. And he's Barry from Barry's Bootcamp. Like, he's the guy that helped co-found this really successful gym franchise. He's writing, directing. He's such a, becoming a really great writer and director. And so that in and of itself, having him as a success story and to use what happened to fuel this film and to essentially play the more extreme, vengeful version of what he wishes his psyche would have been back then was really, really interesting for me and fun. And it's also, I don't get to play these characters all the time. Sometimes, a lot of times I'm the nice guy, or I'm the friend, or I'm the boy next door, or I'm the frat guy, or, some of these archetypes that they try to put me into. And I'm not really given the crazy psycho very often. So it was fun. It was a lot of fun.
And again, if you're just now tuning in, we're talking with actor Mike Manning all about The Way Out on digital February 10th, so you can check that out. Are you okay to stick with me through a very quick commercial break?
Yeah, let's do it.
Perfect. We're going to take this quick break. We're going to come right back, and we'll chat more with Mike Manning. If you've got a question for Mike or my upcoming guest, Julian, you can send us a text on the KTRS text lines at 84126. Well, I'll try to pay attention to those. I know I haven't been great about it, but we'll try to get your question in if you want to send a text for a question to Mike. You're listening to Geek to Me Radio on the Big 550 KTRS. Please stand by.
Hey, mister, how about a lift? This wicked rhyme!
The real Ghostbusters, each sold separately. The Legoland gas station, you build it for action. You can raise a car up on the lift and check the underside, or fill her up, close the hood, and pretend to take a ride. What can you do with the Public Works Center? You can build a crane and watch it drop some bricks into a bin, or lift the door, roll out the truck, and let the bricks fall in.
The action's up to you.
The Legoland Public Works Center from the Legoland Town Collection. Legoland gas station sold separately from Lego Systems.
Puppy, you're my one and only puppy love.
You can show your Pound Puppy how much you love him with snuggly Pound Puppy outfits.
Into your hooded on t-shirt. We're going biking. Snap your pop's jazzy jacket.
Pound Puppies and outfits, each sold separately.
Whoa! Now let's walk to the park. Uh-oh, thunder. Put on your dry doggy rain gear and you'll stay dry as a bone.
Hooded Hound t-shirt, Dry Doggy Rain Gear, Pup's Jazzy Jacket, and Pound Puppies all sold separately. From Town...
Black Steel Robo Force!
Hunter the Conqueror is about to attack Max Steel the Leader. Wrecker the Demolisher to the rescue.
Ideal's new RoboForce. Warrior robots with gripper bases and crusher arms, each sold separately.
Hundred's escaping.
Okay in there?
Okay, Dad. But we won't be safe till we're rid of Hundred.
Babbel.com.
Hey, what's up, guys? This is Eric Martzoff. You might know me from Days of Our Lives. You might know me from Smallville, Rideshare the series, or maybe I ran into you in a grocery store. I don't know. But you are listening to Geek to Me Radio.
We are back, and you're listening to Geek to Me Radio. I'm your host, James Enstall. I want to make sure we tell you about our premier sponsor, the City of St. Charles, the Greater St. Charles Convention and Visitors Bureau. Longtime listeners will know the website, discoverstcharles.com. That's discoverstcharles.com. If you are looking for someplace new to go, it's 2023. People got New Year's resolutions. You want to go travel someplace you haven't been before. City of St. Charles has a lot to offer. Lots of small businesses all in this area that make up a lot of great dining experiences, shopping experiences. There's casinos, there's bed and breakfasts, there's camping spots. It checks a lot of boxes no matter what you might be looking to do. So if you haven't visited, come check it out. They just had their big ice sculpting event this past weekend. It was brilliant. The week before, they had a big 90s party at the Foundry. There's always something going on in St. Charles. So if you're local, if you're in the area of St. Louis and St. Charles, right around here, and you haven't been over there for a while, check out the website, discoverstcharles.com. See if there's something that might be going on this coming weekend that you want to check out. Always something happening. A lot of stuff to do, whether you're a history buff, a foodie, just want to go out and have some shopping. You want to have a girls' night or boys' night out on the town. Lots of little places along there you can check out as well. Start with the website. Once again, discoverstcharles.com. As we always say, it's an historically good time. Talking with Mike Manning here for a little while longer. I know with Teen Wolf, Mike, you got to go to Comic-Con in San Diego, which you're one up on me. San Diego and New York are the two big ones. I haven't gotten up the courage to go because I'm a little bit of an agoraphobe, so the crowds are a little intimidating. But you're kind of into nerd culture. How did you find Comic-Con? How'd that go for you?
I absolutely love Comic-Con. I love nerd culture. I love I dressed up one of the days. I dressed up as Spider-Man.
Nice.
And I just sort of I wore the hood I wore the entire suit. So it was the spandex suit and then the mask. And I just walked around and observed people and kind of people watch and everybody like getting into the cosplay and getting into going to the forums and listening to people speak. I was there. I think I went 3 years in a row, and each time Teen Wolf was a pretty big deal. Yeah. I was only in the final season of Teen Wolf, but because of that, I got into all the parties, and so there was one I went to the Entertainment Weekly party, and it was one of the best days of my life. I went there, and I met Gal Gadot, and I met it was insane. And then I had a run in with what's his name? I'm trying to think of he was in Jeff Goldblum. So I'm there, and I bumped into Gal Gadot, and she was just so sweet and so nice, and literally bumped into her, and I was like, I'm so sorry. And she's like, no problem. And I'm just starstruck. And then I go over and I talk to Jeff Goldblum for a little bit, and he looks over and he takes my hand and he gazes into my soul, and he said, wow, you have really nice eyes. And I'm like, well, thank you, Jeff Goldblum. and it was just one of the best days of my life. And Hugh Jackman was there because I think one of the X-Men movies had just come out, or maybe it was Logan. But it was, I just love the whole nerd culture. I think it's very similar because I know we were talking about The Way Out. I think horror movies and science fiction I've always been fascinated with because I think there's overlap with the two in terms of the stories that take place in science fiction, in geek culture, and also in horror culture. And I think that in science fiction and horror, the genre allows filmmakers to explore, the darkest sides of humanity and themes like The Way Out does, like abuse and all these other things. And traditionally comic books, I mean, I've been reading comics since I was a kid, and even comic books, they would get political, or they would talk about, relationships, or they would do things that I think mainstream society wasn't really ready for yet, but it was okay because they were mutants, or they were aliens, or they were whatever else. And I think science fiction and horror open people to new ways of thinking and new ideas without necessarily making them uncomfortable, because they can still keep everything at an arm's length because it's quote unquote fantasy world. So I love that stuff. I loved Comic-Con. I want to go back again. I sort of made a promise to myself that I'm not going to go back until I have a project to talk about.
Okay.
But earlier this year, during the pandemic, a friend of mine actually created a comic. He and I was one of the consulting writers on it, and he created it, and we were pitching it as a TV series, an animated series, and we pitched it to Amazon and Netflix, and unfortunately it didn't end up going, but it sort of gave me a taste of developing stories in that way, and I really, really want to do that someday. I want to create my own comic. I want to bring it to Comic-Con. I want to make an animated show, and then be able to sort of be the man behind the camera and writing and creating characters and sort of figuring out what kind of stories we're going to tell.
Well, I don't want to brag, Mike, but I do know a lot of comic book writers, so I can hook you up with Daredevil scribe D.G. Chichester, or Doom Patrol scribe Paul Kupperberg. If you're looking to get a little mentorship on the comic book writing, I can hook you up. I don't want to brag, but
I would love that. I would absolutely love that. We were working with Jim Shooter.
Oh my gosh.
Who obviously, he's a legend.
Yes.
We were working with Jim when we were developing the comic, and he really helped us with the characters and some of the arcs and everything. And it was incredible. I mean, that was just a once in a lifetime kind of thing.
Yeah, we've had Jim on the show a couple of times. He's wonderful. Such a wealth of knowledge. I mean, the guy's just absolutely a genius.
Yeah, no, absolutely.
And you mentioned sci-fi and horror and kind of doing the political elements. The original Rod Serling Twilight Zone, to me, is probably one of the best top 5 TV series of all times, and he did that so well of towing that boundary about what is politics, but he presented it in a very subliminal almost fashion with some of those, like the monsters who do on Maple Street and some of the other ones that it just holds up so well.
Absolutely. Yeah. Well, even nowadays with comics, like they're doing, my favorite comic right now is Superman, Son of Kal-El, and what they're doing with Jonathan Kent and making him sort of bi, and he cares about the environment, and he cares about social issues and everything else. It's like, it's really, really cool to see such a figure like somebody that wearing the Superman, the crest and being a part of the Superman world, to now care about what younger people today are caring about, and to see that reflected back onto ourselves through story and characters is, in my opinion, what storytelling is all about.
I agree, absolutely. Tom Taylor is doing Superman, Son of Kal-El. I think he's I don't think he's finished his Nightwing run. He might be going to the Teen Titans, but Tom Taylor's one of the top writers in the industry right now. So you've got great taste in comics as well.
Oh yeah, no, absolutely. I definitely follow him, and I see what he's doing across the board with Son of Kal-El and Nightwing, and it's great. And he's I mean, you already said it. He's just one of the best in the industry right now.
And last question before I let you go. I know we're coming up on your end of your time here. If we talk about these franchises now, if you had to pick a franchise that you could cast yourself in, would you want Star Wars? Would you want a DC project, a Marvel project, or is there one of the big franchises that you would like to crack into and have a character role?
Oof. Oh, that is tough. I mean, because Star Wars, with with The Mandalorian and with,
oh my gosh.
what they're doing in the TV space right now. I mean, that's just fantastic. I was just watching The Last of Us right now. Pedro Pascal is one of my favorite actors, and so what they did with that series was fantastic. I think Marvel has, with Infinity War and like some of the best storytelling with comic characters that we've ever had. They've changed the game, but I feel like it's starting to become a little saturated in the Marvel space.
Yeah.
And then DC, I mean, I think with James Gunn, I'm hoping that the next wave of DC stories is stories, are stories that I think are better received from audiences than they have been. I was really sad to hear that the third Wonder Woman was scrapped, and and some of the other projects I was looking forward to. But I think I just have to say the DC space, just because I've always had a special spot for Superman since I was younger. So if I could be a part of a DC, any DC, Justice League, anything, I think I would die a happy man.
Mike Manning, again, the movie is The Way Out on digital as of February 10th. Make sure you check that out. Where can people keep up with you on social media and websites if they want to follow you and find out more about you?
Yeah. So on social, I'm just Mike Manning. I think on Instagram, it's like Mike_Manning. And then on my website is mikemanning.info. So if people are curious, they can check me out there. And thank you for listening.
Perfect. And if you're listening in the podcast after the fact, scroll down to the bottom of the page in the show notes. We'll have a link to Mike's website right there. Mike Manning, it's been an absolute delight. Thanks for being on the show. Hopefully we can do it again sometime soon.
Yeah, I would love to. Thank you, James. This was a lot of fun.
Perfect. Thank you. Take care. Be well.
All right. You too. Bye.
There he goes. Make sure you check out The Way Out. Again, February 10th, on demand and on digital. We're going to take another quick commercial break. We are going to come right back. We'll talk with Julian Bailey all about Three Pines. You're listening to Geek to Me Radio. Please stand by.
Tell Nestina, the sky is falling. I won't fall for that. Gotcha. That'll keep her in her place.
Rose Petal, Nestina, and Orchid dolls come with All You See Here, each sold separately, new from Canada.
Seaweed's Tropicals. It's Kenner's Seaweed's Tropicals. Camille, Baby Cascade, and Pelly Pelican. She's tan, has pretty blue hair you can comb, and looks cute in a little grass skirt. You can collect Flora Tropical, Baby Finella, and Little Dog de Bloom. Seaweed's Tropicals. Seaweed's Tropicals. Camille, Baby...
Geek to Me Radio.
Welcome back to Geek to Me Radio. I'm your host, James Enstall. I want to make sure we tell you about our official comic book sponsor, Bugs Comics and Games. I was set up at the Toy Man Toy Show today, and I saw Larry and his lovely bride set up at the Toy Man Toy Show as well, selling the comic books and everything like that. It was good to see him as always. If you haven't been out to Bugs Comics and Games yet, in O'Fallon, Missouri, right there at the Bryan Road in O'Fallon, you can get there from Highway 70 or you can get there from the Page Extension. I'm gesturing with my arms like people on 270 can look in the building and see me. But if you head out there, you can get all your comic book fix taken care of from Larry at Bugs Comics. Lots of cool stuff. He's got new comics galore, back issues. He's got magazines. He's got toys, games. He's got, he just sold a Jupiter 2 model kit today that he's had at the store for a while. Someone finally got it from him. If they hadn't, I probably would have swooped in and gotten it. But all sorts of cool stuff at Larry's. If you check out the website, bugscomicsandgames.com, and of course, give their Facebook page a like. Bugs Comics and Games on Facebook. Larry will greatly appreciate that. Check him out. Join the Avengers Club. Save money on your hobby. You can talk to Larry and get details about that on the website as well if you'd like. bugscomicsandgames.com. Very proud to have them as our official comic book sponsor here on Geek to Me Radio. That said, we've got Julian Bailey next. Right now we're talking with actor Julian Bailey. Brand new series. You might have seen it on Amazon Prime. Three Pines with Alfred Molina. Julian, how are you?
I am doing okay. Thank you, James. Thanks for having me, man.
So how cold is it in Canada right now? Just out of curiosity.
Well, today it's actually not that cold. Today is
Big
not
550
that bad. Geez, I don't know. What would it be, around 50 degrees or something? I might be off. They do Celsius up here, so
okay.
Celsius, I don't know. Would it be about 3 or 4 degrees Celsius, which I think is around 50 degrees Fahrenheit? I don't know.
Yeah, so that's not too bad.
It's not
then.
that bad today.
It's actually, I think it's
really
a little warmer in Canada than it is in St. Louis. Now I'm jealous.
Well, I could be totally wrong on my little estimation there, so don't quote me on it, man. Believe me, we have snow everywhere, and sometimes like we get like rain, and then it decides to get really, really cold. So then we just have like a skating rink, and it's real dangerous. You got to put these like rubber spikes on your shoes. But of course, Canada's a reasonably large country in terms of topography, at least. And I'm in Montreal, close to where we shot Three Pines, so we have some very unstable weather here, and you just never know what you're going to get. I mean, the one thing you know for sure is it's going to be unpredictable. That's what you can predict. So,
and being shot in Montreal, I know a lot of stuff is being shot, obviously, in Vancouver. It seems like New York and LA were the places where you shot TV films and movies and everything. Now it's all Atlanta and British Columbia, but this was Three Pines, Amazon series, all shot in Montreal.
That's right, Montreal and surrounding areas. And no, it's true, man. I mean, the majority of my career was spent in Los Angeles, but I'm from here, though. So I moved away from here literally like when I was still a teenager, so like nearly 30 years ago. And most of my career was in the States. And then I came back for personal reasons. My dad was having some health issues, and I just wanted to be close to my family. My parents still lived here. And, and then, but as it turned out, the work was pretty good here. So I was like, okay, well, this is good. You know, I don't have to like return to the U.S. because the work was solid. And then in 2019, I was in LA for nearly half the year, and I ended up kind of getting a new agent in Canada because I was sort of like not sure what was going on down there. And I ended up getting a new agent in Canada. And within a week, I had an offer on something that I didn't even have to audition for. So I was like, well, that doesn't happen that often. So I hopped on a plane, came back up here, did that show, and then did another little show. And then the pandemic hit in 2020. So I haven't been back to the States since. I've just been chilling up here. And it's been good because in 2021, you know, I got this breakdown from my agent for this show from the producers of The Crown called Three Pines, based on these novels by Louise Penny. And I was like, wow, this looks like a pretty solid project, you know, coming through. And so I put a self-tape in, and, you know, a few months later ended up getting the offer. But that's sort of long story short. It was way more of a roller coaster than that, believe it or not. But yeah.
I feel like with all the streaming services like Amazon Prime putting out all this original content, some really high-end original content, a lot of actors have said, you know, there's no point in doing episodic TV on a syndicated channel because you're committed to 26 episodes. A lot of these streaming services, they got this really tight storytelling of, you know, 13 episodes and done, 8 episodes and done. Do you as an actor find that to be, I would think, preferable because then you can move on to another project. You've got more time to do other stuff. Is that kind of the way you see it?
You definitely have a good feel for that dynamic and the differences between those things, like, you know, concerning network versus streaming. That's very well put. You know, I like the way it's done. I just love the freedom that streaming and these platforms like Amazon Prime and Netflix and, you know, all the other ones offer us. There's so much freedom in some of the ways you mentioned, for sure. I mean, as far as network TV and the way it was like back in the day before streaming platforms were really a thing, you know, I will say the money was pretty good with the network stuff.
Right.
You know, so that was cool. But just from a creative standpoint, I guess I do prefer it this way. I think I do. I think you're right. You know, I mean, and I have, in my contract, I have a certain amount of leeway as far as other things I can do in between seasons, you know, praying we get renewed for a second, fingers crossed. But yeah, it's good, man. At the end of the day, honestly, I just like working. So anything that I'm working on, as long as it's a cool project that, you know, doesn't have anything that I find particularly objectionable or something I just wouldn't want to involve myself with, which is few and far between when that happens. I'm just stoked to be working, man. I'm just stoked to be a part of good work with amazing people such as are involved with this show.
And you mentioned renewal. I know critically, this Three Pines has been a success. Loving all the online stuff that I'm reading about it. The critics seem to really enjoy it. A lot of great performances, a lot of great writing. So I take it by what you've just said. None of you have heard yet whether or not you've been renewed.
Yeah. Yes, you have deduced correctly, my friend. But thanks, James. I appreciate that, man. Yeah, the critical response has been awesome. And I would say as much, if not even more, just the audience response in terms of people who've been tuning in, or I should say streaming, has been amazing. I think we were #1 on Amazon Prime for about 3 weeks in the U.S., Canada, the U.K., Australia, and Ireland. So 5 countries. Now we're still in the top 6, I believe. But that happens after a show comes out. There's a lot of heat on it,
right.
And then we got bumped by Jack Ryan, which was to be expected because people have been waiting a hot minute for that show to come out. that 3rd season, so that was to be expected. A huge American show with good old Krasinski, and he's solid. So I mean, yeah, man. I mean, we're just super. I mean, we just feel really fortunate to be in the position that we're in. I said to someone the other day, we left it all out there on the floor. When you watch a good football game or something, NFL playoffs right now, you just see the way some teams really leave it all out there on the floor. And I feel like that's what we did with this thing. We just put our hearts and souls into it, and, a lot that we can't control in this business. And so those decisions aren't left up to us. Our job is to, deliver an amazing product that people will really hopefully fall in love with. And then those business decisions are left up to other people. So, but we feel pretty good about things given the early success, and we're hoping very much and looking forward to having an opportunity to give people something to look forward to in whenever the 2nd season would come out. But look, man, yes, I hope we get renewed, and from my mouth, my mouth to God's ears, but yeah, I don't know what else to say, man. We're all hoping, but at the same time, you got to keep a pretty even keel. Otherwise you'll go crazy, hoping for stuff that you can't really control, so yeah.
Right. Yeah. And if you're just now tuning in, we're talking with Julian Bailey all about Three Pines. Alfred Molina in this, obviously, I knew him as the person who betrayed Indiana Jones in Raiders of the Lost Ark, but he's also Doc Ock. I mean, the guy's been in everything. One of my favorite Bill Murray movies is The Man Who Knew Too Little. Alfred Molina is a bad guy in that. He plays such great roles. Talk a little bit about getting to work with him, if you would.
Absolutely. You know what I love about Alfred Molina, from a career standpoint and from an acting standpoint, is, he's established himself, or he had established himself as such a solid actor, period. Not necessarily a star or a leading man, but just a solid actor, dependable character actor, and has, developed into a real star and just a tremendous leading man with clout and gravitas. And getting to work with him was, it has been like a dream, really like a dream come true. I was checking into the production office early on to do the first kind of pre-read after I'd been cast with Anna Tierney, who plays Clara, my wife my character's wife in the show, and Sam Donovan, the series director, and some of the other cast members. And I'm standing in there to do the whole COVID check-in we had to do at the beginning before entering the building. Yeah, a lot of hoops we had to jump through there.
Oh yeah.
But yeah, But I was standing there, and this tall, distinguished gentleman, I believe, wearing a sweater and had glasses on, and he just sort of he's trying to cross through, and he says, "Excuse me, sir." And I look up, and I'm like, it's Alfred Molina. I had no idea at that point who had been cast as Gamache. It was like, it was like Christmas morning, man, opening your present and realizing you got this beyond what you'd expected you might get, to work with this guy. Yeah, and so I stepped out of the way, and I was, oh yeah, and I texted my buddy, my buddy in LA, and I was like, yo, dude, guess who's playing Gamache in the show I just got cast in, and I gave him a couple hints, and he guessed it right away. And I was like, yep. So yeah, I mean, it's pretty cool. I mean, he's amazing, man. He just knows how to run I was going to say run a set, but I mean, he's an executive producer and the lead actor on this show. So he sets the tone, you know, he sets the bar really, really high. He knows how to act on a set, like literally and you know, like as an actor and also just how to behave like as a leader. He's got a real dignity about him. He's very down to earth. And he's just a true professional, man. He doesn't have any airs about him. He's always down to run a scene beforehand, and very, very kind man, very personable. And, you know, it comes through in his work. And I think that's a testament to a career that he has, which has just been well-deserved because he's put so much time and work in to getting to where he is. And just being the person that he is, I think, it's great to see good people succeed, and he's definitely, in my experience, one of the best people, and certainly big stars that I've ever worked with.
And you worked with a lot of great talent. You've worked with Yvonne Strahovski, you worked with Jesse Eisenberg, Jesse Plemons, a lot of great people. When you're working on a set, obviously, it would seem like Alfred Molina is one of those people like, oh my gosh, was this a case where, you know, you're texting your friend, are you starstruck, or you've done enough of these gigs now where you're like, that's cool, but, you know, I'm going to keep it professional and try not to fanboy too much?
Yeah, well, a bit of both, I guess. I mean, I think you're inevitably a little bit starstruck at first because, you know, you only know this person from the big screen and growing up and, you know, and of course, as an actor, you know, I don't really like to use the word idolize because, you know, I think that I just don't really kind of see things that way in terms of idols or worshiping any other human being. But in terms of really looking up to and like admiring someone, you know, Alfred Molina is definitely up there. So yeah, I mean, there's an element of being starstruck. I think there always is, man. But you relatively quickly get over it. I think once you sort of focus yourself, you kind of adjust the lens of your perspective, and you go, we have a job to do, and our job is to deliver this material, you know, in a compelling, credible, exciting way. And at that point, we're really all peers. You know, we all kind of come back to a place where we're all on an equal plane together, working towards one singular goal, and that's to create an amazing piece of entertainment and to bring this thing to life. So yeah, and I mean, you're right. You know, I've worked with a lot of people, and you know, I was telling someone earlier today in an interview that he was asking about this episode of NCIS that I did back in the day, way back in the day, like first season of NCIS turned out to be a hit show. And I think my episode was like the 4th episode or something. And I'm in my trailer, and it was reasonably early in my career, and there's a knock on my trailer door, and it's Mark Harmon. I open the door, there's Mark Harmon. And he's like, hey, man. He's like, I'm Mark. He's like, welcome to the show. He's like, can we talk about the scenes today? Do you want to come in my trailer? And I was like, yeah, dude, sure. And I was like, wow. So I sat down with him, and he just, you know, we connected about the material, talked about the stuff, and then we just, you know, kind of shot the breeze for a while, talking about his early days in his career and when he was my age and how they were always trying to get him to take his shirt off. And eventually he realized he had to make some intentional decisions about the kinds of scenes or work he was going to, you know, take or refuse. And he just said one thing that's always stuck with me. And he said, it's really about the ethic. And of course he was referring to just the not only the work ethic, but just the ethic of kind of the things I was describing about Alfred Molina, just being diligent, being an ethical person, I think, to a reasonable degree, and being cool to work with and delivering great work. And yeah, I feel very privileged to have had the opportunity to work with great people like those two guys and many others. So yeah, fortunate, man. I feel very blessed.
And in addition to NCIS, obviously you had a lot of work in TV in the aughts, as we call it. Just Shoot Me, Jag, Charmed, a lot of great shows. I would think as an actor, obviously it's great to be first on the call sheet and have your own show and everything. But I kind of like, it's almost like the Whitman box of samplers, because you get to try out this show, you get to dip your feet in this bowl, you got to have a role in an X-Men film like you have. It's kind of nice as an actor to be like, I've had all these varied experience without being and I don't want to say this the wrong way, weighed down by I'm leading this show and I'm in it for however long or whatever. So it's got to be, I would think, very nice as an actor to have that kind of variety. We're just taking a real quick pause. Want to make sure we thank once again our partners at Kokomo Toys in Kokomo, Indiana for the prize pack. We were able to give that away on the show a couple weeks ago. If you haven't had a chance to check out Kokomo Toys and you're in that area, like literally if you're anywhere near the state of Indiana, go check out Kokomo Toys. It was very generous of them to send that along, and I'm sure we have a very happy listener out there in Oregon who I sent that prize package to. So thanks again to our partners at Kokomo Toys. We'll get back to our interview here with Julian Bailey.
Yeah, totally, man. And you said it well. I think that's true. You know, the burden, let's say, as a young actor, let's say, who hasn't necessarily fully cut his teeth yet, being pushed into the limelight with the burden, if you will, of carrying a show or a film like you described can be tough. And I think some people have done it really well, and I think some people haven't necessarily been able to sustain that. You know, when you're young and you have these big dreams and you think to yourself like, oh yeah, by this age, I'm going to have done this, I'll have done that, and I'll have worked with this person, and I'll have worked with this director. And then, you know, the evolution or this unfolding of your career, it becomes what it becomes. And you start to realize, wow, I'm 30 now, and I'm 35 now, and you know, you keep getting older. You're kind of tracking your success, and then you got friends who are having tremendous success, and other friends who are kind of falling off. It's tricky sometimes not to compare yourself, you know, like with your friends that you came up with, you know, and there've been a handful of them. I was telling a buddy of mine the other day that, you know, 3 people I was reasonably close with were nominated for Academy Awards in the last 6 years, you know, a couple of them last year, one of them being Jesse, by the way, Jesse Plemons, who you mentioned earlier.
Yeah.
So yeah, and it's funny, you know, but I'm so happy for these people. And at the same time, just have had to appreciate, which you hit the nail on the head with, the advantage of being, you know, being able to work and be a working actor, but not necessarily have the burden of all eyes are on you, but you can sort of gradually learn and cultivate your craft and your method, and the, you know, like I said, the evolution of your career without the burden of overbearing fame or you know, people you know, chasing you down the street as has happened to a couple friends of mine from the past. And so yeah, I you know, I'm just grateful, man, to be working, you know, at the end of the day, and come what may, if things kind of blow up or if they sort of stay at whatever level they stay at, you know, you just learn to be grateful for what you have. And the intention for me as an artist is always to just do good work and hopefully, you know, affect some people positively along the way and be a positive influence in the world. I mean, that's really, I think, what it boils down to. There's more to life than entertainment and Hollywood stuff, but it is important. You know, we're artists, we're poets and writers and actors and musicians, and we have a role to play in society. And I think it's important that we stay true to ourselves and stay true to the craft.
I know you got your start in voiceover, if I'm not mistaken, which is usually you see people who are on-camera actors transition to voiceover. You almost went through it the other way with your, I think, if I'm not mistaken, unless IMDb got it grossly wrong, you got your start in the English version of Hey Bumbo. You went on to do the Jungle Book TV series, voicing Mowgli, and then obviously some Madeline TV movies, and then you started doing on-camera acting. That's kind of an interesting way to go about it.
Yeah. Well, you know, I'll try to break it down for you, man. Basically, how it happened, how it all kind of got off the ground to begin with. It's funny. It's funny that to hear you quote Hey Bumbo. So, Hey Bumbo actually was a Japanese anime cartoon that was, as far as I know, was particularly popular in France in terms of like, okay, so it was Japanese, but in France, of course, they dubbed it into French. And then for the American, you know, English version, I played the lead kid. My voice was the lead kid. That actually, and by the way, the title was Bumpity Boo in English. It was called Bumpity Boo. So I don't know why on IMDb they have it listed as Hey Bumbo. You kind of reminded me of that. They do. Yeah. And I'll say this about that. So that happened because I had joined this children's theater group in Montreal where I was born and raised. And the directors of that school, it was kind of like a once or twice a week little after school thing. They referred me to this dubbing studio in town that was casting for another anime show called Bully Bully, which was another Japanese anime thing. I guess anime by virtue of being anime is always Japanese to begin with. But at least that's my understanding of it. But that was a cartoon about these little snowman kids. And it was like a big cast. And so I was cast as one of these little snowman kids. It was my first thing ever. And I guess once they saw me and what I could do with this little snowman character, or variety of snowman characters that I was playing, they had me audition for Bumpity Boo or Hey Bumbo. And I got that part. And then after I got that part, then I was asked to audition for, progressively like bigger things. So the Madeline thing was pretty big because it was HBO and Christopher Plummer narrated it, and it was all original material, and it was based off of these really famous, awesome books. So we did that, and then about 5 years after, I was already in the States at this point. I moved to LA when I was 18. I get a call from Sony, I guess, and I think it was Sony, and they were like, hey, we're doing an album. I didn't have an agent, so they kind of were like, look, agree to this buyout deal or you won't be on the album, which may or may not have been true. And I'm all of 18 years old in my little apartment in Pasadena going, and they gave me like, I don't know, $1,500 or something. So then, after school, I was living in Chicago, doing theater in Chicago, and I'm like, I go to the Borders bookstore, the Barnes & Noble, and Madeline everywhere. Madeline absolutely blew up in the late 90s. It was just everywhere. And, of course, the album that I was on, that my singing parts were on, because I was Pepito, I was the little terrorizing son of the Spanish ambassador that was Madeline's friend. That was just, like, everywhere, man. That album, Sony Wonder put it out. And I didn't see a penny, not a penny, as far as I know. I don't want to misspeak, but I'm pretty sure I didn't see a penny of any of those royalties or residuals. And but that's okay, man. The work out there was a great experience. It was really cool to be a part of, and funnily enough, to this day, people still, despite anything else I've ever done, some people still, when they find out I was Pepito, they just call me Pepito. So it's like, hey, Pepito. I'm like, hey, how you doing, Madeline?
Yeah, it could be worse things to be known for, right?
Yeah, for sure, man. Yeah, for sure.
And again, with Three Pines, hopefully will be renewed for a second season. Talking about the books, this obviously based on written material as well. When you're doing this, obviously, a lot of times series don't directly follow the books. We've seen this even as far as like big budget James Bond films don't follow the Ian Fleming books exactly. Was this something where they told you, hey, make sure you read this, or do they say, no, don't worry about that, just pay attention to the outline for the story that we're giving you here as the producers on Amazon Prime? What was the prep like for this?
Yeah, good question. Look, this is the thing. For me, I was cast rather late in the process, so I wouldn't have had very much time to get into the books before jumping into filming. A little bit of time, not a lot. And it was recommended to me to read, in particular, The Murder Stone, which was also released under a different title, which escapes me at the moment. And that was because episodes 5 and 6 were heavily centered around my character and my character's family. So that, as far as them recommending that I read anything, that was about it. But I still picked up Still Life and was kind of, the first in the series, and was sort of leafing through that, trying to familiarize myself with the origin of, this adaptation. I was going to say, like, at some point, once we were rolling already and certain things had been established between myself and the producers and the director, in particular, series director, Sam Donovan. I was reading the books and realizing some of those things weren't necessarily altogether congruent. Like, let's just say certain physical aspects. Okay. Like, they, for example, wanted me initially to keep my beard and long hair, because I had a pandemic beard at that time. And so when I was in the mix, they were like, "Yo, keep the beard." They, my agent was like, "Keep your beard. They like your beard. They like the look, and don't cut your hair." So I didn't cut my hair. Even though I was doing another movie, I kind of worked that out where I was just a guy with longer hair. Anyway, so let me try to get this train back on the tracks. Where was I going with this? Okay, so Sam and I talked, and he said, "Yeah, take the beard off. And I said, "Can I have a 5 o'clock shadow at least?" Because I didn't want to be like complete baby face, because then my wife would be like, "You look like you're 12." And so I he's like, "Yeah, cool, but keep the hair long." So they wanted hair long. Okay, so then I'm reading Still Life, and I read this one section where it goes, Peter Morrow looks less like an artist and more like a lumberjack, which I was like, okay, I guess I'm kind of a bit, semi big guy. I'm almost 6'2", and I guess I'm probably more lumberjacky than artisty. But then it says he always wears glasses and he's always clean shaven. And I was like, oh no, I'm not wearing glasses and I'm not clean shaven. I'm like, I campaigned for a 5 o'clock shadow. I got a 5 o'clock shadow. And so for a couple of days, I was kind of tripping over that. And I talked to a few people about it, including Anna, who played Clara. And she was like, look, do you really want to be wearing glasses like this whole shoot, potentially multiple seasons? And be committed to those. You have a lot of emotional stuff. I don't know. Maybe the glasses will get in the way. Maybe it's better. And
unfortunately, we're going to cut it a little short. I ran over on time with Mike Manning and previous guests. You can go online and listen to the full interview with Julian Bailey, though, all about what the last bit of there that we got to talk about, Three Pines. Want to make sure very quick we tell you Maxim Movies is coming up next. He has his review of Women Talking, so you can check that out. Also want to push the YouTube again, youtube.com. Find Geek to Me Radio there. We're trying to get to 1K by my birthday. So by April, I want to have 1,000 subscribers. If you could help me out there, head on over to YouTube and subscribe to Geek to Me Radio. That would make me a very, very happy person. That's going to do it. Thanks, as always, to Joey V. He's in studio. I'm going to mess up the camera now. He positioned it so closely. There he is in studio helping me make this show sound and look as good as it does. Thanks to him. Thanks, of course, to our sponsors, the Greater St. Charles Convention and Visitors Bureau, Bugs Comics and Games, and our partners at Kokomo Toys in Kokomo, Indiana. That's going to do it for us. Until next week, my friends.
It's not